Ace and I will take a break from bitching about ESPN and a Deflategate to talk about him and his new book. Ace Atkins is our longtime friend, the author of many novels. He picked up where Robert B. Parker left off when he passed away five years ago. I just can't believe that. Bob's first book was the Godwolf manuscript with Spencer in 1973. He wrote 40, I guess, after that. This is Ace's fourth one. And it's like Bob never left. He just kind of got a new spirit and got a new approach to this. And Ace has carried on in fine fashion. The new one's called Kickback. It's out on Tuesday. I'm playing the high noon theme because at one point in the book, my hero, Hawk, whistles this in a sarcastic moment, of which he has many.
Of course.
Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for making the trek up here to the big city from the country. And book is out Tuesday. I read it twice because I back in January I read it too soon, so I went back and read the last half again, and it was just as good. And
I think so. I think everybody should read it twice.
and then buy it twice.
You buy it twice.
This is about Spencer, and Hawk enters the scene about halfway through. This is about, and many of your work, I think, is inspired by events in the real world.
Sure.
You see a story someplace, and then that is the genesis for an entire book.
Absolutely.
This book is set up in a town outside of Boston called Blackburn, and it is about zero tolerance among the youth of America. And it's about corrupt judges, and this kid, Dylan Yates, does something kind of stupid, but he ends up in this awful place, and he ain't the only one, and this happens over and over again to these kids. And it is a giant, horrible scam. What story sparked this thought and plot?
Sure. I mean, I'd like to say this was completely fictional, and how crazy is the idea that some kid is going to do some pranks? I mean, I would have gone to jail for the things that I would have done.
God, we all have, yeah.
But it's based on a story that happened in Pennsylvania, where there were these two corrupt judges, and they had a piece of this private prison. As we know, private prisons are a problem in America. Anytime you get a for-profit jail, you want to fill up the jail.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. These two guys had this scheme working with this developer, and they wanted to fill the beds in this private prison. And so they started sending these kids to jail for just nothing. I mean, just offenses as far as being disrespectful to a teacher. One young lady set up a Facebook page and just made fun of one of her professors, and she was or one of her teachers, and was called disrespectful, and they sent her to jail, I think, for 7 months. Away from the family, away from her studies. I mean, it was just an insane thing. There's a terrific documentary about it called Kids for Cash, and a lot of the background information I got for this book came from that documentary, which I would recommend, because it does happen all over the country. I mean, a similar thing happened in Meridian, Mississippi. I don't think it was established as far as the kickback scheme, but kids were being sent to private prisons left and right for just absolutely nothing. Not asking a teacher for permission when they left the classroom, or left the class too early. They were off to jail. And of course, in Mississippi, many of these kids were black students, and they were being sent off to this private prison. So it happens across America.
Yeah, I saw a story about this somewhere last month, and I thought, oh my God, this is about what he's writing about. And the judges involved are a key ingredient.
Sure.
And they're corporate, and they're greedy, and they're not corporate. They're corrupt, and their greed just knows no bounds. So they're making a fortune off of this.
Yeah, these two guys in Pennsylvania certainly did, and again, I would advise anyone interested in this stuff to look at this Kids for Cash documentary. But they did. They had they had money enough to go down to Florida and go live in a gated community, and they had their own. One of them had a boat, a big fishing
yacht,
fishing boat, and on the back it was called Real Justice, as far as real. But it was as nasty as it gets, and but luckily in this particular case, these guys were found out. They were removed from the bench, that kind of thing. So it's just, but it's a problem. I mean, anytime you get a juvenile system that is based on a model to make money, that it is a profit, that's a scary thing, and it's a scary thing just for adults too, where we're going into private prison system as well.
So Spencer is hired to track this down and to find out what the source is and the origin of the bad guys. And he and Hawk end up down in Florida, and there are some bad guys who are kind of hired to scare them, which is impossible to do.
Yeah, you can't. Hawk and Spencer. I mean, intimidation does not. That's not a part of it.
Yeah, the sarcasm and the dialogue between these two is just hard to beat. It is laugh out loud funny in various places, and just a delight. I do notice that as you write these books, because Bob has been gone for 5 years, and his wife Joan for a couple. And Susan and Spencer and their ongoing life together was written about from Bob's perspective, about he and his wife, we always thought. Now, Joan would deny that sometimes.
Yes.
Kind of half and half.
Right.
She would cop to it, then go, well, maybe not so much.
She liked the good parts of Susan. The bad parts, she said, that has nothing to do with her.
But I notice in this book that her presence with him, except for just the romantic parts, has been kind of diminished, and that's because I assume that they are gone, and that inspiration, you never were there to see how they lived their lives, so that's been kind of made smaller.
Well, I think, in this particular book, Kickback, there's a lot to do. I mean, Spencer, it does not have a lot of time to go and have dinner with Susan. There's not a lot of time for, talking about issues and that kind of thing. So it wasn't a conscious decision, but we'll tell you this one thing. When I talk, or when I think about writing Susan, and I get that sense of who she is, I think about Joan Parker.
Yeah.
And so much of what I learned about writing Spencer came from my relationship with Joan, and she would read some of the early books that I had written, and she would have comments on it, and she always she taught me a lot about writing Spencer. But at the same time, when I think about Susan and what would Susan do and what would she say, it's just right on with Joan.
Yeah.
She was funny, she was salty, she was hilarious, and so in some ways I think the Susan I write about may be closer to the truth of Joan Parker, as opposed to, I think sometimes Bob wrote more of the, or as Joan would say often, what he wished Joan would do and how he wished Joan would treat him.
Right.
It was the idealized version of, she's like, I don't tell you what a great man and how wonderful you are all the time, and what a brave individual. And he said, well, you should. That's what you should do.
Ace Atkins is here. The book is called Kickback. It's out on Tuesday. Yeah, when we talked to her, and we talked to her on the air and off the air, and she was a bit saltier and had more of an edge than Susan does.
Certainly,
because she's more of a feminine, dainty, shrink, and she's all that. And Joan was anything but dainty. She was a ball buster, just to put it in those terms.
If you had Joan Unfiltered on the show, if she was really, FCC would be all over you guys for violations. I mean, she told it the way it was.
Yeah,
and nobody, I could tell some of the things, the jokes and the comments she made, but she was a funny woman. And I think that's what I'm trying to get back to in the books, and I think Bob had that in the earlier novels, where the relationship was more give and take, and it was back and forth, and it reminded me a lot of those great 30s screwball comedies. It reminded me of The Thin Man. It reminded me of Nick and Nora. There was a back and forth, and so hopefully in the books I'm getting back to the roots of what Bob used to write about in the early relationship with Susan, and it's fun. I mean, great characters, fun to play with, and fun to write about.
The best part to me of this book is this section with Hawk and with Spencer in Florida.
Yeah.
And the dialogue is just magnificent, and it's very funny and very smart, and it's like it always has been. I mean, you just captured that perfectly. And Hawk is a funny, badass dude.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can just see it in your mind.
Yeah.
So
I think that's one thing that I always hear from readers is that, more Hawk.
Yeah.
I just love that relationship, because it is, you coming in the intro and playing High Noon. I mean, that's what the relationship is. They're the two gunfighters.
Yeah.
They're the two guys who've done it all, seen it all.
Big, handsome, black guy with a shaved bald head
Yeah.
who's dressed to the nines and drinks champagne.
Kind of reminds you of kind of like a look of Marvin Hagler, former fighter, only much
Only
more,
prettier.
only prettier
Yeah.
and more literate. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, Hawk is just one of the great, Bob's creation of Hawk is one of the great characters.
Yeah, because he plays this game with Spencer, because he is quite well spoken and very smart, but he plays this Yassa kind of game with him that is not him at all, and they play it up to the hilt. Do you want to ask him? You had
there was a
earlier.
question about the character that opens the book is not Spencer. It's
Right.
it's an italicized small chapter from the perspective of a kid who gets arrested and sent to this for-profit prison.
Sure.
And he shows up periodically through the book. And so far as I could tell, unless I missed it at the end, you never gave him a name.
Yeah.
And so was that something to point out that this could be anybody, this could be your kid?
I think maybe I just forgot to put the name on it.
Oh, what is that too?
No, I think, no, it was supposed
Dylan
to.
Yates is the main kid, but the other kid is the one that gets the...
Damn it, now I've got to go back and rewrite this.
Nice
Was
going,
it on a Tuesday? Jeez. No, the reason I had that is exactly what you're talking about, Wes, is that, he's supposed to represent all the kids. Because again, the problem in this book, it's a fun book, it's a funny book, it's a crime book, there's action, but the core of what he's getting involved in is a true issue in America with kids being sent off to private prisons for just the dumbest reasons, stupid reasons. And he's supposed to represent many kids, and that's why I didn't give him a name, because he could be anybody. He could be one of the thousands.
So has that film helped kind of spread the word about this? Because it is
I
a
think
widespread
so. I mean, I
issue.
really can't say enough about this film, Kids for Cash. And I watched this thing, and I used to cover crime for years down in Florida. That's one of the reasons I write about Florida in the book. I kind of wanted to bring Spencer and Hawk down to my old stomping grounds and reconnect with that. But if you watch this documentary, you'll be in shock that this actually happened. And then after that, you'll be so angry. And after seeing the film and the interviews with these kids and what they went through and that they got through it and that nobody, I think that's, High Noon is a good intro to this because it's a very high noon situation. People in this community knew it was happening. They knew these judges were sending these kids away for it, but everyone was complicit in it. The teachers knew. The school resource officers knew. The prosecutors knew. They all were complicit in this thing, not necessarily because they were getting money for it, just because a lot of them were afraid to say anything. And as we know, keeping quiet and not talking about issues is the highest form of cowardice.
Yes.
And that's what that shows in this day and age, that no one spoke up for these kids, even though they knew it was wrong. They were afraid of the wrath of the judges. They were afraid of speaking up against the community, and that's to me the highest form of cowardice.
Well, it is a heck of a read, and it teaches some lessons as well. You also brought me kindly, I can't wait to get into this, the new Quinn Colson book is out on July 21st. These books are set around here, and Memphis plays a prominent role in all the previous books. What is the gist of what goes on in this one? I have no idea.
Well, as we talk about it, I mean, it's so much fun to
switch gears and become somebody else.
It is. Well, I mean, for me, I love writing about Boston and Spencer, and it's just so comfortable because I grew up with this character and I know the character so well. But writing Quinn Colson and writing these Southern-based books, I mean, it is our own backyard. It is the Mid-South. It is Memphis. It's North Mississippi. And all I can tell you about the Redeemers, that copy that I brought you is hot off the presses. I mean, the ink is not dry yet.
I appreciate it.
It's going to be out in late July. And the only thing I can tell you about this book is the criminals who are involved in this should make it to your dumbasses of the day. It is about some dumbass criminals who decide to pull a heist.
We live.
And it's a true story, and it's something that actually happened here in North Mississippi. And it's you see these things these guys do, and they pull off they try to pull off a safe job at somebody's house, and then they realize when they get in there they don't have the key to the safe. They realize they don't have the code to the safe that they thought they did, and everything goes wrong after that. And it's kind of a tale. I hope it's a darkly comic book. I think it's kind of in the line of the Coen brothers and that kind of stuff. But it's also very true. There's scenes in Memphis. There's stuff on EP Boulevard. It talks a lot about places here. So there's always about a third of the book that's very Memphis centric, and the corruption here, the characters here, the people here. This is the greatest. Boston is great. But this area, this is
colorful.
The fun. It is colorful. I mean, these people around here, the politicians, the criminals, the culture. We got bad cops, and we've got politicians taking bribes. We got this, but then we've got B.B. King, and we've got Elvis Presley, and
the
we've got
Bass
great
Pro Shop.
food, and we've got Bass Pro Shop.
It's
And
a
most
real odd balance.
It is an odd balance. There's the good and the bad, but for a writer, I mean, this is my place to write about.
I love gold.
This is gold.
Now, this is the fifth one, and the last book about Quinn Colson took on a whole new edginess. There was a palpable change in, let's say, language and just the general demeanor of the character. Got a little bit more intense. Is this all the same intensity, the same liveliness and the same edginess and meanness of these dumb people?
Well, I think in the last book, The Forsaken, we really got into some very dark hidden secrets of the community. And in North Mississippi, it's a very true. It could be Marshall County, it could be Calhoun County, it could be Yallabusha County. All you know is it's a county about 90 miles from Memphis. That's about all you need to know. And a lot of those communities are the same. The Forsaken, which was the fourth book in the series, and a lot of them these books are interrelated. I mean, it's kind of like if you're watching Breaking Bad or Mad Men, or it's kind of, this is like the redneck version of Game of Thrones. One of the kingpin, the king of the county, runs a truck stop and a strip club, and there's good guys. We've got Quinn Colson, who's a guy returning home from the front, who's a U.S. Army Ranger, and he's having to clean up corruption in the town, the classic westerns. And The Forsaken was a revisiting a very dark chapter of that history. This book, The Redeemers, I think is even though a lot of people get killed, it is a lighter story. It's a funnier story. I think it's the funniest book in the Quinn Colson series. Some people might read it and say, how the hell do you think this is funny? You've got guys getting blown away and screwing up and some really terrible stuff. But to me, it's one of those comedies of everything that can go bad actually happens in this book to these criminals. And it's really ends up leading to some good things for the community, so we think.
Very good. So you go back to Boston a lot, I take it, and stay there and just pick up the vibe and the spirit of the streets. And
I do, yeah.
A lot? Do you just go there hang and stay and visit?
I do. I mean, I'm up there every several months, and when I go to Boston, it's the same thing. Again, writing about North Mississippi is my own backyard and getting the feel of it. And to get to Boston, I've got to really get that community right. And I look at it almost like being a reporter, being a journalist, getting to soak it up and get to know the people and the characters and the beat up there. So every few months I'm up in Boston for several days, extended time. I'll be up in Boston on Wednesday, and there's always the time that I'm reading a book or talking to a group, and somebody raises their hand and they're like, Mr. Atkins, you're from Mississippi. How are you able going to represent yourself, as far as Boston? What do you know about Boston? And I said, look, I'm not from Mississippi. I've only lived there for 15 years. And they're like, oh, thank God. I said, I'm actually born and raised in Alabama. And they're like, oh God. No, so I know Florida very well. I spent time there, but I really the world I'm writing about as far as Boston these days is different than the Boston Bob knew.
Yeah, it is.
5 years has passed since his death, and that community has changed a lot, and things are going on. So I'm covering that community. I mean, I really get deep in with the research. I really get deep in this. I'm writing a new book. Spencer will be out next year. That I'm writing. It's about a lot with the Boston Fire Department. They were terrific. I was up there about a month and a half ago. I got to go hang out with the Boston Fire Department, go to the firehouses and meet the people and talk to the commissioner and the arson investigators. And so I really get into it. When I do Boston, I'm full out.
Very good. So this tour begins next week. You'll be going all across the country, I guess, for weeks on end.
I am 2 weeks. I'm lucky enough to get a 7 a.m. flight on Monday out of Memphis, and I am gone for 2 weeks straight on the road.
Then you're back to start the promotion for the new Quinn Colson book.
I get a brief break. During that time, I'm told to be writing like hell and finish this new Spencer book that'll be out next year.
It's only May 15th. Tell him to calm down.
I'm going to tell him you said that.
Yeah, tell him to slow the F down.
I'm going to actually that is the message when I get out of here.
Use that phrase exactly.
You got it.
And that will work. Always great to see you. What is the as far as the other books? Reed Coleman's work, is he going to be involved again?
Yeah, it's funny. Bob was so prolific. Bob Parker, he had so many things going on. He wrote 2 series. He had a guy named Jesse Stone, which was kind of like his Quinn Colson, only it was North Massachusetts.
There was a Jesse Stone movie marathon on last weekend.
Yeah, which are great. Tom Selleck. So my buddy Reed Coleman is doing that, and it's fun to do that.
He's really good.
Reed is a longtime pal of mine. I've known him for years and years, and so we're kind of like been batting around the idea of doing a Spencer Jesse book where I would write half and Reed would write the other, which works out great for us because we only have to do half the work. So it'd be tremendous. And then a guy named Robert Knott writes the Western. So
is he going to be doing that again too?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. I believe he's going to do another Western. And then
those are just great too.
Oh yeah.
But so nobody, and Joan was always kind of uncertain about the books about Sonny Randall, which I thought were just great.
Yeah.
But nobody seems to have picked up on that one, and as more
I don't
time
think
goes
so.
by, it doesn't ever.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you, I think they're great. I mean, everything that Bob Parker wrote was fantastic, and he was just, as a young writer, I idolized him. I thought he was a fantastic stylist. He was funny. He was clever, and then getting to know Joan the last several years of her life. Was such a joy because
Yes.
she was just brilliant, and I feel
Yeah.
like I got to learn a lot about Bob.
Yeah, he his whole style you have done so well. All the arcane references to this, that, and the other, from culture to music, they're all still there, and the books are great. And it must be gratifying to see them sell. And folks that loved him, I'm sure, went, "Ace Atkins, writing Spencer."
Yeah.
But 4 books in, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
So,
that's it. I mean, I tell you, there's no more of a loyal fan base than the Spencer readers, and they may have been skeptical in the beginning,
sure they were.
but they are terrific, and I get the nicest feedback from them. They've been buying the books, and they're keeping it going, and I think what they see is that I love these books as much as they do,
It's
and
obvious,
I don't want
yeah.
to go in and rearrange the furniture, change things that much. I want the story to continue. I want to see what's going on, and I think Bob had more books left in him, and I'm just continuing his work. I am truly Spencer for hire. That's what I do.
Great to see you. Thank you. You do great work. You're one of our favorites, and I hope you can come back in July for the new Quinn Colson book.
Always great seeing you guys.
Tuesday, the book is out wherever you buy your books at bookstores, hopefully, or on Amazon. You can do that. Ace Atkins has been our guest. We'll have him back in a few months to talk about the new book. This one is on sale, Kickback, Ace Atkins. The book is out on Tuesday.
I love that version of High Noon. That's nice, man. That's just,
I don't know whose version that was. I'm gonna have to ask him when he gets his headphones
Hawk
off.
whistling the high noon theme.
Whose version was that? Where did that come from?
I
sounds
tried
like
to-
this.
some of them were like kind of sappy. This is from the Soho Strings